Hello, everyone. Welcome back to an author spotlight. I'm Amanda Johnson. Today, I'm here with Melody Miles, a brilliant woman who I've connected with in the past month, and she is inspirational to me already. The book she has written that will be coming into the world sometime in the near future, also inspirational. And so I really wanted to take this time to drop in with her, garner some of her wisdom. Like, I think I have like a quotable from you already, so I'll have to see if I can pull that up while you're talking, but it's she's full of them. So I said, no, we need to get on video. I need to record you, capture some of this, and share it with everyone else. So Melody is the author of the forthcoming book, Soulcation. Love the title. So anyhow, be sure to keep an eye out for that and follow along with her. But what I want to dive right into, Melody, is why is it so important to share your story or write your story?
Such a good question. And thank you, Amanda, for chatting. I wholeheartedly believe that telling our truth and telling the stories about our life can set us free. My story was I was a scientist. I'm trained in data analysis. I had a 10-year career as a humanitarian and a philanthropist working at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and used all sorts of tactics, work, success, perfectionism, to avoid my story, at least the parts of my story that were painful or shameful or hard. Um, and my life kind of reached a breaking point of the death of my mom, and the end of a relationship. And I actually ended up on the bathroom floor at the Gates Foundation having an anxiety attack, realizing that I was ignoring my story and that it wasn't scary. And so I ended up taking a year sabbatical, where I wrote down my whole story, all the things I was afraid of, how I was kind of questioning limiting beliefs and unconscious beliefs about how I had to show up in the world to be loved. And it has changed every area of my life. And I feel like I needed to write that book really just to set myself free to believe that I have my own voice, that I can speak my own truth, that I don't need to mimic all the scripts inherited from the world, that there's this uniqueness inside of me that I never found until I started writing my story down. And if only for the power to believe that, those dark corners of our soul, or those things that happen that we wish we didn't, or those things that we're hiding, that they don't become as scary when we can own them and write them down, and realize that the more I started telling my story, people were going, oh, me too, oh, me too. And having it at writing and committing it to be real, but also putting it on the page and knowing that there's more story to be lived, um, was also, it has healed me more than anything else, and has been the best thing I've ever done in my entire life. Hands down, hands down. And we're all creative. Like, I was in a role in corporate America, didn't think that I had the time or capacity or ability to write. And yet I gave it a try. And I truly believe that we all have this creative power and creative genius in us, that just we need space and time and the right environment for it to come out of us. But the artist way and Julia Cameron has been a big teacher, for me, of just writing it down. But yeah, for anyone out there who says they're not a creative, I would say it's not about judgment about whether you're good or bad. It's about the process of doing it that will like rewire your soul and your nervous system from the inside out.
Yeah. Just what you're saying, it's how do we know until we do it, until we actually, put it on. I wholeheartedly agree. We are all creators. We're creative. We have source energy, which to me is creative energy. It's how, everything in this world comes from our thoughts, our words. And some of us go out and build companies and build technology, and some of us write a book or write a story. It's beautiful. And what you shared, Melody, is I had full body chills. Writing our story can set us free. I wholeheartedly believe in that. And I believe in the journey. And maybe you can speak to this, quickly as well. And I just remembered the quotable that you shared with me in a message. I was literally like, I got to write this down as you're saying it, because it was, I may now be misquoting it, but it was the essence of clarity doesn't come from getting in my head, or it doesn't come from thinking. It comes from engaging. And that was so freaking powerful. Like when I think of the creative process and beyond, the co-creative process, right? So there's that, you're doing your own work when you're writing and you're creating and you're sharing your story. And then there's also the collaborative co-creation that can occur as well. So anyway, I'm just curious, even for you to speak a little bit about the journey of writing the story. And so it's important to share it. But there's something else there about.
Yeah, clarity comes through engagement, not through thought. And that has changed my writing journey. I wrote a lot of this the first draft of my book alone while traveling the world, which was what I needed. But there has been a huge shift in my joy, in my clarity, when I finally realized that I needed to start talking about my ideas, talking about my message, asking for help. I read this statistic that 60% of all books, like all books on the market, are like co-written with a coach, with a ghostwriter, with a partner. And I think it's because we can't do this alone, and that as like people can see writing as a solo activity, but you can just be up in your head like rereading and re-editing, and it really is through engagement that you understand what your readers are struggling with, that you kind of gain clarity in what you really think and want to say. Like I write to learn what I think in some ways. But I really hit a slump this fall where I stopped writing, where I was frozen, where I didn't know what to do with the book. And I'm sure so many people that want to write or have started, or you reach that phase where you're just like numb. And the way that I got out of it is starting to engage. And, like that's when we met, calling up people, interviewing people, asking for help. And there is an investment that comes with it, but it's the best investment that you can make is this partnership in investing in your process, because you just need someone to help you. You can't do this work alone. You need someone to help you kind of get clear on what you really want to say, what matters, what parts of your story need more exploration. And a lot of that happens in conversation before it can happen in paper. And that's why actually my sabbatical was powerful, because I got to tell my story to strangers over and over again in each country. And that was refining the book.
Yeah, the more we speak it, the more we, like you said, engage with it, with others. When we get it out of our head, when we stop thinking about it constantly and get it out and verbalize it and express it, it will actually transform it and refine it and revise it. I'm getting goosebumps. It's so beautiful. Melody, you said one thing too before we wrap this up that I wanted to come back to. You had a statistic, what, 80% of people
of Americans want to write a book. And I think it's less than 2 or 5% ever do. There are so many people out there. We all have our own story that is inside of us. So there's just such a huge gap between the desire of most people in America wanting to write a book and the action of who is actually taking a step towards that. And I really do think the gap is fear, lies that you're not creative, lack of support. And you are the only one that can tell your story. And in my own personal healing journey, we talked about this. I've actually was the girl that read a lot of books, got a lot of advice, read everything in the self-help section. But it actually was when I started reading memoirs and started reading other people that were going through death and going through divorce and going through career transition that I learned the most. And so I do think there's a gap in the market of just people that are willing to put their story out there, because other people are going to resonate. And the more messy and complicated it is, the more actually it makes people feel less alone. And so we all want to put perfect things out of the market, but I actually think it's the stories of our imperfections that change lives the most.
More quotables. Okay. So we're going to have mugs created from this whole series. I love it. I'm going to add one thing to that beautiful list and recognition of the gap between the 80,000 who desire it and the 2 to 5% who do it. I will add to that beautiful list with also the belief or the story or the lie we're telling ourselves that um, it actually isn't, it doesn't really, it's not that important. Like, oh, it's just that desire, you know, it's just that desire I have, it's not important. And so there's this whole like unwilling to actually own it and proclaim it, and then also and declare it, and then also the some story or belief that it's, oh my gosh, it's so funny, it literally just evaporated. Let me just ground in, because I, so where this is coming from for me, I'm gonna be really serious, vulnerable, is I recognize my desire that I would equate to what those of you wanting to write a book and birth a book into the world, because I call myself a book doula. I have a desire to have to birth a baby, and yet I have all this story around like, oh, it's not important. Here's the one I wanted to land you with is, you know, it's not important. I have other things to do, right? I have other things to do that are more important than that. So maybe this sounds familiar. And the biggest one is that I'd be okay if I never did.
Mm.
It would
Mhm.
be okay if I never did. And so, how many of you out there, if you're part of that 80%, because not everyone wants to write a book, I'm not going to pretend that. Not everyone does. But if you're part of the 80% and you're telling yourself, it's okay if I never do, check in. Is that true? Is that really true? And if it's not, go back and listen to what Melody said. Go find her, because she's been there, she's done it, she's taken the year. Not everyone has to take a year to do that, take a year off. I mean, there's so many ways and paths to bringing our gifts, our creations into the world, yet she's an example of one way it can be done, right? So go find her, listen to her story, be sure to get her book Soulcation whenever in the future it is out, and depending on when you're watching this, maybe it already is. So really be recognize that you're not alone in this, that your desires do matter, that it may not be okay if you don't actually achieve them or experience them, and that there are so many ways to have this happen, and most importantly, doing it in partnership, in collaboration, in community, whatever that looks like for you. And if you're watching this right now, in February of 2020, there's an opportunity for you to join me in Costa Rica with other souls who are much like Melody, writing their stories, putting them onto the page, and knowing they don't have to do it alone, that they can do it in community, to be supported through the process, through their journey, because it's a soul's journey. I invite you to join us in March in Costa Rica. I'll make sure you know how to find Melody. I'll make sure you know how to find that. And Melody, thank you so much for taking time to come on here and share your wisdom and your inspiration with us.
Of course, my pleasure. And yeah, sometimes writing a book, you can be your own worst inner critic. So I'm here to encourage everyone that to take the step to put pen to paper and to do it in community.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you to all for watching, and we'll be back with more in the future. Until then, many blessings.